Hey! It is Game 5, baby. It's Toronto Maple Leafs are in town at home versus the Tampa Bay Lightning, and they got a chance to close it out tonight. And I'm wearing my Shoresy swag right now, property of the Sudbury Bulldogs. There you go. So for you Shoresy lovers, season 2 is coming out. Looking forward to seeing Jared Keezo and company in character with the Gins. They're beauties, those guys. But I digress. Let's get back to the Maple Leafs right now because I don't have a whole lot of time. And we want to try and cover a little bit more of the shenanigans that's going to go on tonight in Game 5 at home. So a couple of thoughts that I think that I want to bring up. So the Maple Leafs go into Tampa Bay and win 2 games in their barn, in Tampa Bay's barn, which they had no business in winning. I think everybody can understand and admit, if you're not delusional, which most Leafs fans are, that the Leafs got drastically outplayed in both games and came out with W's by the skin of their chinny chin chin. Without Michael Bunting, who will not be in the lineup tonight as well, but we'll get back to that. But Vasilevsky, like, what's up with that guy? Just going from the world's greatest goaltender to playing 50 minutes of the game. And then if you would have told me that he would have let in 3 goals in the last 10 minutes and then give up an overtime goal, I would have said no way. But guess what happened? Boom. And not that they were bad goals, but really badly timed goals, I would say. So since the first time since 2004 that the Maple Leafs have a chance of winning their first playoff series in almost 20 years. So it's coming down. Now they've been here before. They've been here against Boston, against Montreal, and they've lost all of them. And, what I think is that the Leafs tonight will lose, not because they are going to play poorly. I think they will come out and play a fairly decent game. But I think there's something historically that's been Vasilevsky that every time he's been up against the wall, that guy has bounced back like an absolute champ. And he's just crushed it. So I think Vasilevsky comes out and just says, nope, you're not beating me. I'm not going down like this. He didn't win the Stanley Cup last year. I think that probably still bothers him. Tampa Bay is not the same team that they were 2 years ago or even last year. And it shows, and he has to steal more games. He's got to be better in order to steal these games because the Leafs have a lot of firepower and they're an exciting team to watch. And certainly there have been no shortage of fun and challenging moments if you're a Leafs fan out there, but they've pulled it off. Give them credit. They pulled it off. So why do I think the Leafs will lose tonight? Because I think the Leafs play at a certain level where they need that pressure on them to come from behind. And then they take their game to a whole nother level, but they can't maintain that level of intensity. If they could play that level of a game for 30 or 40 minutes, not even 60 minutes, but 30 or 40 minutes, I think they would do well and they would actually win games and crush competition. But for whatever reason, these guys are lazy at the start of a game. They put themselves in a hole behind, and then they actually have to dig themselves out of that hole. And we've seen that during the regular season where they've been able to do that. And then sometimes they push from behind and not caught up, but made it really close, but ended up losing the game. So I think tonight, Leafs fans have to be in that barn. I've been to, 16 or 17 NHL arenas. I think the Leafs have like one of the worst fan bases of the home crowd I've ever seen out of all those barns I've been to. Simply because they got corporates guys down low in the bowls, whereas every other team, generally that's the greatest fan base and that's the loudest. The Leafs have it all the way up in the upper bowls because that's the only people who can afford those seats. And the people who are in corporate seats down low, are down in their luxury boxes, getting their like Grey Poupon on and their like $22 beers, below watching on TV network. They don't give a shit about the game. And that's the reason why, those fans are so quiet. So if the real Leaf fans show up for $11,000 a ticket, they can watch their team and cheer them on. I think that momentum would do them very well in order to get them out in front of the Lightning tonight. But I still don't think that the Leafs win tonight. Now, I still think the Leafs will win in a 7-game series. I'm not just sure if they're going to lose tonight and win in Tampa Bay or win back at home. I don't think Tampa's going to be able to pull this out. And that's big coming from me because I'm not really a Leafs fan. So I'm basically just going out there and saying that the Leafs are going to like close it out because I think this is the year. I think that this is the year where their goaltending has aligned. They've been playing, inspired hockey. They've been able to pull out wins, and that's how winning is done. Nobody says it has to be perfect. Nobody says it has to be, consistent because they haven't played consistent hockey, but they found a way to win. Give them credit. And Tampa Bay has come out on the bad end of that. But I do think that there's too many leaders in that Tampa Bay dressing room and that team that they're not going to go down in Game 5. So I think Tampa Bay steals this game, and I think that they come out of this game probably winning by 2 goals. And I think the Leafs will make a late surge, but I don't think the Leafs win tonight. I think Vasilevsky comes out. Any other goalie other than Vasilevsky, yeah, I'm saying the Leafs win tonight. But like Vasilevsky is the one guy who will shut out the Leafs tonight with his back up against the wall. And those Lightning players, they play for that cat, and they love him, and they will stick to him as long as he comes out and he shuts that door down and does what he can do or what he's capable of doing. They'll win the game tonight, and then basically there it's a flip of a coin because they're going back to Tampa Bay. They're obviously going to have the advantage because they have the home barn, which hasn't served them in the series. They lost 2 games in their own barn. But again, we'll see how that goes. But the Leafs definitely have their knee on that throat of the Tampa Bay Lightning, and then hopefully if they can close this out, they get to the second round. Now they're going to play Boston. What looks to be Boston, because Florida has been keeping them in check. I'm very surprised that Florida has been able to take 2 games, let alone or a game, let alone 2 games. But Chucky comes out and scores that game winner last night after Olmok really botched it behind the net. But you know what? I think Boston comes out. They're a different team in this series. They've showed it that they are beatable. But Toronto versus Boston, it's never worked out for Toronto's favor. And actually, it's like passing kidney stones painful to watch that series. So what do you think? Do you think the Leafs come back tonight and win? And don't give me the whole the Leafs are going to go to the Stanley Cup playoffs and they're going to win the cup and we're planning our parades. Don't be a dumb Leafs fan. Be objective about it. Base it on something rather than your emotional response of how you feel about the Leafs or what your loyalty is towards the Leafs, because you have to be loyal in your life and you have to support a losing franchise for the last 20 years that have price gouged you and ruined the team, and then basically had to rebuild and then let you down every single playoff round for the last 20 years. Yeah, and before I go, I wanted to say this. When I was in the beach in Toronto, when I was living in the beach for 20 years, I was lucky enough to have lived in Steve Stavros' childhood home at Queen and Coxwell, just down from where the old Tulip used to be. And my first landlord of I had an office building above the Grover Exchange at Kingston Road and Main Street at 674 Kingston Road. And Chris Stavro, Steve's brother, owned that place, and he rented it to me. And some of my greatest years were in that building. And then 2 or 3 times, the Stavro brothers would have lunch on a Friday afternoon every single week at the Tulip. And if you wanted to whack Mr. Stavro, you knew where to find him. He'd be, with his brother Chris, and they would be fighting over the check every single Friday of who gets to pay because they wouldn't let the other guy pay for it. And Chris passed away in 2017. He was 92. I think he was married for 70 years. He was a wonderful human being. I loved Chris. And they would sit there and they would talk hockey, Steve, Chris, and myself. And I was lucky to have, lunch with the Toronto Maple Leafs owner. And Mr. Stavro was a passionate owner. He was a well-spending owner. He gave them a budget before the salary cap came out that nobody else could really rival with, and he could have pocketed that money and he never did. I remember one time we were talking about Alexander Mogilny that he just bought, Alexander McGinley, I think, was like $7 million a year, which was huge money back then, or whatever it was, $5 or $7 million. And all he just said is like, you know what, I'm paying for what I'm going to get, in goals. And I think this guy's going to get these goals. And, that's what we're going to do. We're here to win. And he really believed that. And when Mr. Stavro had to sell that team off, and then the new owners came in, there was crickets, for all the 2005s all the way through after Mr. Stavro passed away and passed the team over to Leafs, and they've been shit ever since. And so I want to bring that up because the Leafs haven't been, and that's the reason why I don't like the Leafs, is their management group. Their executive, I don't think any of them give a shit. They're all owned by the Bell Media and Rogers and corporate who don't really have any incentive in winning. And just like my Flyers, when Mr. Snyder passed away, same thing. Comcast took over and just kind of ruined the team. So I'm kind of hoping that changes and you're able to see the Toronto Maple Leafs get back to what they used to be in the early 2000s when they were powerful and they were actually contending. But we'll see. We'll see, man. And I'm open to seeing it. I'm open to get shit on because they got thick Irish skin. So if you don't like it and you want to bash me a new one, go ahead. But again, I still think the Leafs lose tonight. I think they win the series, but they lose tonight. But feel free to tell me what you think.